My name is Kadieva. I'm the principal of Sallay International Academy. I'm here, as always, with Aleka Molokova, who is our lead of academics. And we are talking about motivation today. I don't know. I mean, I'm in Europe, Aleka's in Boston, so we're unclear about them of the day. But yeah.
Yeah, so we decided to devote this talk to studying motivation, to kids getting motivated to learn, because this is the topic we talk a lot about, teachers are worried a lot about, parents are worried a lot about. And this question kind of very often comes. What if my child, what if my student is not motivated? What if my student doesn't want to learn? So what do I do
want
with
to
it?
do anything at all. I also like this.
Well, maybe they want to do something, but not exactly what I'm here for them, right? Yeah, and this is the question, like, what do we do with it? Like, we have a teacher, we have a educational setting, we have a student there, but it seems like it doesn't really work, this whole thing. Even if the teacher is great, the work setting is great, it's all there for them, all the materials, all the things, but if a student is not really motivated to do all that and to use all that, it doesn't seem to really work the way we are hoping it to work.
And I would also say, what do we do with it as parents if our kids are not that motivated to learn or to study, or they go to school for whatever social reasons, or they just don't want to go to school, which is also an often case. So what do we do as parents is also a legit question, which we will, I guess, try to cover in tonight's talk. So, Aleka, tell us about motivation.
Basically, how I wanted to build this talk today is like, I really wanted to make this distinction and discuss it with you. Like, what do you think about it? And how do we deal with it? And how do we approach it? As I would really make the distinction between the types of motivation a student can have. It basically applies to all kind of motivation for grown-ups, work, anything. But since we're talking about the school kids and learning, I think we want to talk specifically about this. And I really want to make this distinction between what we call external motivation and internal motivation. The spoiler before we talk about it, we consider
we need to comment on that. Yeah.
The spoiler about it, like, when we talk about internal motivation, we do believe that internal motivation is the most powerful one and the one that works better. But this is kind of like, just that's where we are. But it doesn't mean that that's the only thing that we are aiming for, and that's the only thing that works, and that's the only thing that maybe we think that in a perfect world, that's how kids get motivated. But, well, practically we use a lot of things, and we use whatever works with our kids and students. Okay, so talking about external motivation, which is generally what many people start thinking of when thinking about motivating kids. When the question happens, what do I do if my kid is not motivated? Or what do I do to keep them motivated? So generally the first approach here is I need to create something for them, maybe a system to get them motivated, right? To like get them some award system or something like that. Or I need to have a talk with them that they really need to study, right? So this kind of external motivation is something that we create for a kid. It can be as positive, or sometimes it can be a negative motivation. Like, say, if the kid doesn't study well, we're taking something away from them, something like that. But it's all happens to be an external one. And so what are, I would say, the examples of that? the negative
If
examples
you
can
get
be
bad grades, you get deprived of your screen time. You don't get your iPad. I mean, when I hear people say this, I honestly have a question why on earth they buy iPad in the first place, but okay. Um
yeah.
or like, yeah, I don't know. If you have all good grades, you get more pocket money. Are you paying your kid to study? I mean,
Okay,
I have I have a bunch of questions.
opinion on that.
Yeah, towards stimulating kids and preteens and teenagers and adult people through external motivation. Um, both to say parents and educators. When I hear educators say, then if they complete this extremely hard task and read, I don't know what, a medieval text in medieval French, not being native French speakers at the age of 10 years old.
They
And
will get a they
for
will get a
this,
candy.
they will get a sticker. And for five stickers, they will get a candy. And I'm like, are you serious right now? But that's how it works. Like, I see
Yeah,
people do this all the time. And apparently, it's, well, a thing.
it's a common practice. I mean, that's why you what do you think of? Like, say, okay, my kid doesn't want to do something, or something really hard is in front of them, a hard task or something. But I know for sure that my kid loves, I don't know, playing iPad, or really wants pocket money, or whatever, likes going to amusement parks or something like that. So it's a logical conclusion that maybe if I promise them they will do that at the end, they will be more eager to do the actual task, right? So it makes total sense why people do it. Why we as it's pretty obvious, like why we as educators kind of criticize this approach. Uh, and like disclaimer, that's our personal opinions. If you believe deeply if this approach should be a thing,
This personal
we
opinion definitely does affect the school approach and does
yeah.
represent the school approach. Um, Although this is probably not a disclaimer you are expecting to hear. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
So why we do really criticize that is that for actually various reasons. I mean, first, we do believe that the education itself, right, like what kids do in their educational process, uh, supposed to be already like completing this hard task, uh, digging into that hard task, being able to complete it, supposed to be very rewarding itself.
But here you're like switching to like inner kind of motivation part. Like
Well, yeah,
sure
yeah,
you are.
yeah. I'm kind of like,
You
okay, yeah,
are.
I'm not going there yet. Yeah, I'm not going there yet. Then.
Do not. I mean
But
the
it is a
answer
motivation, right?
is
Like,
simple. Yeah, the answer is simple. Please feel free to cut this part out of the podcast if you think that that's too much. But honestly, I think that using this kind of motivation with students is somewhat the same as training puppies.
yeah,
They complete um, a set of stupid tasks that make absolutely no sense but make you gain the exhibition and you give them some food. Wow. How rewarding that is. So,
um,
yeah, I
question is
would
like, does
say
it work? But does it work? I mean, it does, kind of,
it
right?
does.
They complete the
It
task
does.
by the end.
It
They
does.
get the
And
result.
actually, I would say criticizing and external motivation and these methods of motivating people is a very easy thing to do. But I would like to like try to see why people do this and why it's actually not always such a bad idea to do this. Say you have a student or you're a parent of a kid who has zero to none motivation at all to do anything. And that's the only thing, that the only tool you have to make them start doing something. Because all this internal motivation that we are about to talk about, uh, it is definitely great, and it's a more sustainable one and more meaningful one, and all of it. But it comes when you actually do something, and you have to, well, make them start, right? So, for in some cases, making students start by, I don't know, promising them more iPad screen time, or some sort of stickers rewards in the end, um, can also be a working thing. I mean, it's actually a thing you can do if you see that. All right, no, you have something extremely boring that
Yeah.
your student has to push through, and it does not feel naturally rewarding for them. You can try to perform an incredible, I don't know what, show, encouraging them to do this 10,000 uh, grammar exercise. But probably
Yeah.
at some point, you just have to give them a sticker, and they will be
Yeah.
happy with it.
Which
And
is
that's
generally,
also
I
fine.
believe.
I
Yeah.
mean, just as if it works, it's good. The problem
Yeah.
with it is that it stops working pretty soon.
Yeah.
And another problem with it is that it does not help. I mean, in long term,
Yeah.
like for students to ask themselves, okay, so the whole past year, I've been doing this for what reason exactly? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a struggle. So these are basically two problems with
Yeah.
external motivation, and with why we think it's better to lean towards the internal one. There are, though,
I would say,
cases
yeah.
that are like on a edge of the two. My
Yeah.
favorite one is like, say, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I was thinking about the external one. Generally, it's like, it's not that we say that it's a no way thing,
Mhm.
like no way, don't ever do it. But we generally think that if you're honest about it with the kids, with your students, say we are going to have this thing that is going to be boring, but it has to be done for us to achieve something. It like in many activities, in sport activities, in some other educational activities, sometimes you just need to go through this a series of tasks that are not that entertaining but has to be done, work-wise too. And in this thing, if we can be honest about that, that okay, people, let's just go through it. At the end, we're gonna go and celebrate with ice cream, whatever. It's not that you're motivating them, but that ice cream, but it feels good that when you accomplish it, you finish it, and then you go and do something nice for yourself. My question is like about external motivation. That can be a different kind of external motivation,
Okay.
which is also, what if your parents tell you that you need to study well because well, because you will disappoint your family if you don't. I'm sorry.
Whoa!
I'm sorry. I had to.
Ouch! Gosh.
Yeah, and the kid, well, of course, they don't want to disappoint their family, or they.
I would say it actually goes into internal motivation in this case. Because, well, not commenting on this kind of parental approach, which is legit, but I would say edgy. Um, Not disappointing your family and being a valid member of your family.
Yeah.
Being is part of being who you are for any person and for a kid specifically. So if being a hardworking, successful, whatever student is a part of their family identity, it falls into part of their personal identity. And if this is what you have to do in order to be yourself, well, then that's a very, very powerful inner motivation to do something. Um, yeah, so I would say then it's not an external thing. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, actually, okay. I mean,
it's a
after you
very,
commented that,
very valid reason to do something,
yeah,
as they call it, for yourself, like for your
yeah,
for yourself, um for your vision and image of yourself to be complete.
yeah.
So that's an internal one.
I
I would
mean,
ask you
your
about
way, your
teachers.
way, your way of putting that is actually very positive. Like that, it actually gives reason for. I mean, reasoning like of why doing that. I mean, what I'm referring to, of course, is all those stories. Like my parent wanted me to be a doctor or whatever, and I never, never enjoyed anything of being a doctor, but I still became a doctor because my family wanted me to. But overall, like the way you're putting it, is actually given a pretty legit reason and personal reason for kind of pursuing it still.
Yeah, because I come
Yeah,
from this family, of course. Um, Everyone in our family loves reading. If I did not, or was dyslexic, or whatever, nobody cares. You have to read all the time because everyone in this family loves reading. So
yeah,
that's why I have a literature degree, even though being dyslexic. So, of course, I put it in a positive way, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And
I would ask you.
it's actually very promising for all those people who are being motivated by well, their family expectations.
Yeah,
Uh,
go
it
for it.
actually
It actually
gives
works.
them, yeah.
I would have a question to you. What about it's not that I'm very interested in this subject or that I need it for whatever reason or that I get whatever perks for studying it and succeeding, but I really like my teacher and I don't want to disappoint my teacher and I want to do more in order to say get more positive attention and maybe time and kind of this kind of rewarding things from my teacher. And generally this is the case, that's well called motivation through teacher's personality.
Yeah.
What kind of motivation is that?
So that's actually a tricky one because on the one hand, you will see that's external, right? Because it's just another person, um, well, being there, creating the motivation for you. You know, I don't know, by giving the great lessons or by being a great personality or something. And overall, but we overall think about it as a positive thing, right? Being a great teacher, this kind of inspiring teacher, that this kind of teacher that when they come to class, kids really want to learn just because they adore this teacher and they get interested into in the subject because they love the teacher. I think we have a lot of stories like that, right?
And
From
that's
like
actually
many.
one of the most, I would say, powerful motivation factors
Yeah,
in middle school, for example, or
yeah,
like in school, not in
yeah. I
college.
would say this is very powerful, and generally getting motivated and getting interested in something when it you get exposed to a very passionate uh, person who is passionate about what they do, about what they teach, about their thing. Being exposed to this kind of person is a very powerful experience, and for many people that can be, well, a life changing experience. This is how they choose their major. This is how they choose the thing they want to do, right? uh Question here is tricky part, because this is totally, this is this kind of teacher that we are looking for always, right? In our life, we in school look for this kind of teachers for the kids. And the tricky part here is what happens when you part with this teacher? What happens if you graduate from middle school, you have a different teacher, or teacher leaves and you get a new teacher of the subject? And if the only thing why you wanted to do that by that moment still is just a teacher's personality, you just wanted to do it with this teacher, and when teacher leaves, what happens then? And here's the question: if this motivation, if this spark that this teacher put in you still will stay there, and from this point you can just do it with whoever and wherever, or if by this you get so, I mean, I guess dependent is a bad word, but you get so, attached to this particular person with this particular subject, then when the person leaves or you change the teacher, you just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So this is a tricky one.
It is. Well, I have another tricky one for you if you wish. But I guess you have.
So I mean, here I guess it's very important for the teachers themselves to be really aware of that. Of course, that's the goal, to be a great teacher like that. But it's also a goal for you to make sure your students are independent, to make sure your students are somewhat empowered, that they can do it themselves too, that it's not all about you, that it's just you kind of providing them with tools and inspiration, but it's all about them to carry it on.
Absolutely. And I actually was thinking about all those cases of students being good at a subject initially for being say charmed, attracted, bought by the teacher's personality, and then the teacher changes, or the student changes school, or just, I don't know what, the circumstances, the environment changes, and the student would go on being good at the subject because they got used to being good in it, and because actually being good in it is now like their kind of thing, and their kind of thing, say, with this teacher, or their kind of thing for themselves, and they're like, okay, so we have to be good. I have to be good at it because, well, that's the above part of who I am. Personality wise. So talking about inner motivation, there's obviously this part of, I do this because it's important to me for whatever reason, because I don't know, I think it's a part of who I am, or because I'm just very interested, which is, I would say, the simplest way. I just enjoy doing this a lot. There's also this motivation, which is definitely an inner motivation, the motivation by success. Like when you do something and you succeed, and you get so happy that you succeeded that you're like, okay, cool, that motivates me to put more effort into it, because I know that, because I want this feeling of success later. I think it's called something like Chinese motivation cycle or something like this. Have you read this, the battle hymn of Tiger Mom? The book of a Chinese,
I know what you're talking about.
Lady who was raising her Chinese Jewish kids in the US.
Yeah.
And she explains this logic in the book, that you work really hard and you make your kid, if you are a Chinese mother, you make, according to her, that's not my personal opinion, you make your kid work really hard through tears, pain, blood, and sweat. And then they get the first prize on the Olympics. what's called gold medal on the Olympics, and they are so happy about it that they think that it was worth all of it. So like this kind
Yeah.
of motivation, like, but it actually works. I mean, on a smaller and probably healthier scale, it also works. Like on a
Yeah,
daily,
I mean,
it is a thing.
this is what like all this like this whole concept in teaching, like creating a situation of success for a kid,
Yeah,
and especially for a kid who comes with less skills or less motivation. That's like especially important for them to create a situation that they are achieving something, that they are capable of achieving something.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And so yeah. So what can you do, say as a teacher, in order to boost your students' inner motivation, which is a more sustainable one and can last for ages? And
Yeah.
is definitely, I would say, generally a more healthy and more sustainable one. So what can you do as a teacher to boost it?
Generally, I would say
Or
you
what can
are
you
on a
ask for from a teacher if you are a parent? Because I don't know. I
yeah.
mean, I just imagined
So
all the
generally, I would
parents
say
doing the podcast.
if you're going into this path of okay, say I don't want to just motivate my kids by promising them chocolate or something more fancy, um, but I do really want them to find their inner, you know, motivation for doing stuff and be actually give for them to have the responsibility for it and for them to think of it as their thing, as their work, their thing they do. There are two things, kind of two things you're aiming for, and it is generally many things can be done for that. But I'd say the two things that ensure that the child gets this motivation is firstly that they do have the full understanding of what exactly they're doing here, what's the plan, what's the concept that they're learning, what is the subject, where am I going, like what are we going to study. And I'm saying that because there are a lot of examples of the opposite, when the child just shows up for a class and I don't know why I'm here, I don't know what are we doing here, I guess they will tell me today, and they will
Well, there
tell
are
me tomorrow.
examples of teachers also just showing up for class, being, I don't know what's gonna happen today. I guess I'm just gonna figure out which is.
Figure it out. Yeah. Well, that's a topic for a different for a separate podcast. Like, how do you, teachers' approach to teaching? I guess, yeah. So yeah, and if the child, and it's very important for them to have this kind of sense of ownership, that it's their studying, it's they're doing it, it's their responsibility, it's their studying, and for that, we really need to ensure that they have a full picture of what exactly they're doing and what their goals are, so they can follow it. And that gives a lot of, it makes a lot of sense for them this way. And if it doesn't make sense for you and you can't really answer the question of what exactly you're doing and where you're going and why, it's kind of hard to find an inner motivation for that.
Yeah.
But on the opposite, if you do, that really becomes your thing. And if you think of it as your own thing. So this is one thing. And this is, of course, many ways how teachers and parents can help with that, by either providing kids with, exact plan, talking to them a lot about the goals, explaining, answering questions, asking the kid if they, how are they doing? Are they really getting there? And generally monitoring if the kids are connected with what's going on in the class and what's going on with their course and with the material that they are supposed to learn and cover, or with the concepts that they're supposed to, grasp. And the second thing, and it's kind of connected to the first one, which we're aiming for, and which is the hard one. This is the most.
And I would say just like there are simple tools to make sure that the first thing you're talking about happens.
Yeah.
It's like you can create a mind map for every class, for every course, for every semester, and every, I don't know, week, every 2 weeks, whatever, every something period of time, come back to it and say, hey, here is where we are, here's what we are doing, which is a totally legit thing. And as a parent, you can ask the teacher, what is your plan for the upcoming term? And don't hesitate to do so, and don't hesitate to come back to this plan. And teacher changing the plan is okay, but teacher not knowing what the plan is a worst case. So yeah, being flexible and being unprepared are different things, and I would say let's stick with the first one and avoid the second. So yeah, we just promised to give some life hacks, and we always give this part as the boring one. So sorry for interrupting. go on with
Yeah,
this.
that's good. I like the way you put it. About being flexible versus being unprepared. Okay. So yeah, and the second thing, and generally this whole process is, of course, it takes more time, it takes more energy. It is definitely energy consuming. And the second thing, which is also goes into internal motivation foundation, is the personal connection of a student with like what they're learning.
Yeah.
And this one is a hard one because, I mean, since it's a personal connection, it's different for all different students, right? You can just create a universal personal connection for all of your students or for all kind of material. So, and it's really different, and it really takes a lot of attention from the parent and from the educator to help the students with that. Sometimes we're lucky and the child just discovers their personal, passion about some subject or topic or history. Say like we have some students who are super passionate about World War II, and they don't need any like motivation, help with motivation on there. Like they just go and they just
go for it. Yeah.
Asking for more and more. But in other things, especially like there are a lot of examples with languages, with learning a foreign language. Because there are multiple ways how you can learn a foreign language through anything. You can even all the topics that you can use when learning a foreign language. This is what gives you a lot of opportunities to actually find a topic that the child is already interested in. And when the child is, say, when there is a person interested in, I don't know, fashion or something like that, and then during the class, it's kind of, I mean, this is your opportunity to use it to make this connection for this student possible with your subject. If they're learning a foreign language and you provide them with material on the topic they already love, they already are very interested in, they already read about, I don't know, followed all these blogs and, I don't know, Instagram accounts on. If you just use this topic and incorporate it for this child in your learning, in your teaching process, that can be so meaningful for them and extremely motivating. On the other hand, if like you have it there, but then you go and study, I'm sure if I can come up with a relevant example, but like you study, I don't know, geography of London when you study English as a second language, when you clearly have a child who is like not really into it, and it's not that they're not into your subject or not into learning English, they just don't really care about like London geography. And this is going to be when you can be really flexible and find this connection, help the student to find this connection. And in learning different subjects, in learning literature, in learning history, there's always something that the child is personally can be attached to, personally can be interested in more than the other things. And if you emphasize this for a child, if you show them this, that they can do it. In science, there's a bunch of things like that too. This can be, well, super fruitful as in motivating the student. I was helping them to get in there. I don't even want to call them motivating, because you just kind of help them to find this thing for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it takes a lot of flexibility, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of attention from you, but doing it can be like very rewarding.
Last thing I'm gonna ask you about before we completely run out of time is, I know you like talking about it, so that's gonna be a spoiler. Aleka, do you think that motivation, once established, can be maintained at a steady pace and can be kept, like at a equally high level, say throughout a semester or just a trimester? That's even less.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, that's a good one.
Here we go.
I'm talking about that. So, and this is actually that I wish people who are like care about think about think about motivation and keeping students motivated, keeping their children motivated, have in mind that about kind of natural motivational cycles. And
I would say that if you are an adult seeking for ways to motivate yourself, that's also useful to keep it in mind, because it actually works the same way for everyone.
Okay, it's actually like easily explainable with, like when grown up, say all of us, decide to get into this, I don't know, new healthy habit, like you want to go work out. And you're so at first maybe even get motivated and inspired, and you get this
and it's January the 1st, you're in your New Year's resolution, right?
New Year's resolution, and you also like say like in a good way, not like you pushing through it, but you kind of get really motivated. You get new, I don't know, sport, uniform or something. You get new sneakers, you get this cool thing, even maybe a great community to go work out with, and this workout that you actually enjoy, and you like go for it, and you're like, great, now I'm going to do it forever because it's so great, and I like it, and I enjoy it so much, and I'm so motivated to do it. But then you still do it for a while, but it naturally, you come to the point when you realize you're not that motivated anymore.
And you're more sore than motivated, and you're exhausted.
Kind of have like other things to do, and there are days that come and you're like, I don't really feel like doing it today. And then depending on your personality, you do push through maybe for a while. We're not talking about like professional athletes here, right? Like we're talking about regular people. You do push through for a while. You do feel bad about it. That's like, well, I kind of need to do. Then you go push, and then you start skipping, your workouts and all. Maybe feel bad about it. That's, well, it was my New Year's resolution. I'm skipping it, and then you just stop, or you find ways to actually go through this period of not having your motivation to as high level and regain it at some point. So my point here is like this level, this moment comes even for the students as well, even if the beginning of the year or like at first in the beginning of trimester, it happens that maybe you work that well that your child, your student is motivated and enjoying it so much, or just naturally you're lucky that that was the subject or topic that they are already love doing. They will still come to that point where they're rather do some other things than this, and their school-wise, their grades might drop a little, their involvement might drop a little, they might skip some, I don't know, homework here and there. And it's like, I'm just from the very beginning, I wish everybody would keep in mind that this moment is coming. It is gonna happen. In most cases unavoidably. It is there, And the question is like, what we do with it? Because at this point we start worrying, okay, he's not motivated anymore, or like, you don't want to do it anymore. Like we failed it maybe for some reason. So we need to fix this whole thing again. And in this case, I would kind of wait about thinking all that we need to, that we failed and we need to like find his motivation again
You're
or
not
boost
a
his
bad
motivation.
parent. You're not a terrible teacher.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Not, yes. And it's not like when you're okay, his internal motivation doesn't work anymore, I need to boost him with chocolate or something like that. We're not there yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. Yes. It's just this process will happen. And if you just kind of go through it slowly and say, and just don't stop and like maintain your, like always creating some routine with kids, an easy, simple routine that they still can do during this periods of the motivational drop. Because say in the beginning of the year, they were able to produce, I don't know, a complicated research on their own, and they will like read several more texts that you were assigning them. And then you realize during winter, well, it's winter time, it's kind of cold and they're already tired. And generally they have some other, friends asking them to play online instead of doing homework. And you were like, but they were doing it, right? What's wrong? Like, are they broken now? Like, do we need to fix them somehow now? And this is not the case here. Like the most, the best thing you can do at this point is just create some or maintain some simple routine for them to just keep them going through this period. In the most cases, it's coming back. It's coming back. And if they're still there, they're still learning, and they are not super discouraged about, failing high expectations of a teacher or a parent or something like that, they will still come back. Because if it was already there, if like you were great, the class was great, kids were motivated, it's probably just a period. Of course, this is a period where we worry a lot that we are losing it, but in most of the cases, it's not. Of course, there is always, there is this tiny possibility, say, when the kid has been doing some sport activity, say, or he has been into, I don't know, art school for a while, but it just comes a moment naturally that he kind of grows out of it or just changes and didn't want to do it anymore. These moments happen. But school-wise, and in most of the cases, it can be just a period which we need to wait through and work through and support our kids through, and maybe not push them too much during the period, and just kind of help them regain that motivation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, unless there was some, major just discouragement event that really like demotivated the person, that's gonna be fine. Most probably is like 95% cases they will be back to motivation. Just give it time and try to be helpful and resourceful and supporting. You might not be born for running, and this New Year resolution might not be the thing, but generally all kids are able to find their place and motivation at school if it's a good school and if it generally fits the kid. Like, it's a very complex system with so many different aspects, and it's unlikely that all of them just break at the same time, right? So it's gonna come back. Everything's gonna be okay. So yeah, thank you for listening our very long talk about motivation. I hope it was somewhat helping and maybe motivating for someone. Please don't hesitate to write your comments or questions or anything else anywhere in the comment section where people will be watching or listening to this. So just leave your feedback. We will read it all and respond to everything. Um, and yeah, if you have any other topics that you think we should cover, if you watch till the end and want to see us talk more, go for it.
Please.
Share your thoughts, and we'll be happy to do this. So yeah,
We're welcome. Like we also welcome your stories about like your school experience or your kids' school experience
for sure,
on the topic.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, week, and year. And I don't know, stay smart and motivated.